Hello and welcome to Storytime. I'm Teguh and this is part 14 of A Tale of Two Friends. If you remember what happened in last episode, Cleo's mother was taken away and she became very depressed by that. And this was all while they were trying to figure out how to get people to adopt the other animals. And so today we'll see what happens in part 14, The Seed. The rest of the day went on as usual for Neisha. It was busier than before. The amount of dogs at the shelter had decreased by 6. And now there was only 6 left. Neisha, Neisha's mother, Goober, Jelly, Sasha, and Biddles. These were the dogs that did not understand the gestures or the voice commands that the people were saying, or they were not lucky enough to be randomly selected by the people that came in. As the shelter closed for the day, Neisha went to the communication hall at the back of the cages. She called out. She looked through the hole to find it covered with white fur. She called out again. Cleo didn't move. She had blocked out the world around her. For her, the world was still and silent. She was in her own little bubble. Nothing right now was going to pull her out of it. Neisha called out a few more times before giving up. I can't let myself be crushed like this when my mother leaves, she thought to herself. She turned and walked towards her mother, who was playing with Scuba. She had decided that no matter what, she was going to help everyone. And she wasn't going to let what her mother say stop her. She said in her most confident voice. Her mother stopped playing and turned. Neisha's mother replied. Neisha ignored the comment. Neisha's mother raised an eyebrow. She said, tilting her head. Neisha said bluntly. She turned to everyone. Neisha was the youngest in the pen. However, everyone was amazed at her authority and her voice. Everyone came to her. Even her mother had to fall in line too. Neisha said. She moved her right front paw up and down. The others looked confused. The others chattered amongst themselves. Asked Jelly. Neisha smiled. The others looked at each other in shock. Goober said. Neisha replied. Jelly said as she stood up and left. Goober and Bizzles followed her. Sasha went up to Neisha. She asked. Neisha replied. Neisha's mother stood up and turned. She walked away to where Goober was and started to play with him again. Sasha said. Neisha smiled. She said, wagging her tail. Throughout the night, Neisha and Sasha worked together on each of the commands that they saw the people do. They took turns performing the commands and the actions. The others watched and laughed. By morning, Neisha and Sasha had everything memorized and ready to go, even if Neisha was not going to use them for a while. After eating breakfast, Neisha tried to talk to Cleo. She still was not responding. Neisha went to Sasha. Sasha nodded. She responded, wagging her tail. The day was slow. And while they were waiting for people to come in, they continued to practice the commands. They did it the whole day. No one came in that day. They said to each other as they ate dinner and went to bed. The next day was the same. It wasn't until the 5th day where someone finally came in. Neisha went to the back of the cage while the 4 dogs ran to the front. They were all full of energy. And the people wanted to look at them. They started with Goober. Goober acted friendly towards the person, kissing their faces and jumping all over them, and laying on his back when they rubbed him. But then they did the actions that Neisha and Sasha were practicing. He sat there, confusion on his face. He tried to do something, but it turned out incorrect. The people shook their heads, said something to Karen, and moved on. Next was Neisha's mum. She was friendly towards the people too. When it got to the part of the hand gestures, she had the pained look on her face before doing some random action, like Goober. The person rubbed Neisha's mother, said something, and moved on to Sasha. Now, Sasha was excited, but a little more subdued than the others. She was nervous too. The person came up to her and waved. Sasha, trying to jump the gun, tried to put her paws into the other person's hand. They laughed. And Sasha stood up, wagging her tail. Oh no, she needs to calm down, Neisha thought. The person then started to do the up and down gesture. Neisha watched as Sasha, still excited, smiled and sat down immediately. The person put out their hands. Sasha put her hands in theirs. The person lowered their hands to the ground. Sasha lay down. The person drew circles with their hands. Sasha rolled over. Then the person did something that Neisha had never seen before. The person quickly raised their hands, stood up, straight and down again. Sasha, without skipping a beat, stood up, jumped and laid back down. The person said something to Karen, and Sasha was taken out. The person knelt down and opened her arms. Sasha moved in. The person hugged Sasha and gave her a kiss. They turned to Karen, said something, and turned to walk away from them, beckoning Sasha to follow them. Sasha looked at the person and then ran to Neisha. Arr! Sasha said, before following the person. Neisha replied, her tail wagging. When the day was over, Neisha couldn't help but try to rush to Cleo and to communicate with her about the day's actions. Before she can get there, she was stopped by Bittles and Jelly. She asked them. Although she was much smaller than them, she didn't feel scared. Neisha puffed off her chest and stood as tall as she could. After a short standoff, the 2 dogs slumped their shoulders and tucked their tails between their legs. Jelly said. Bittles asked. Neisha, happy about that, wagged her tail. They moved aside for her so she can get to Cleo. Neisha called out for Cleo. She wasn't going to let her off the hook this time. It had been 5 days already, and this was great news. She yelled. Cleo didn't respond. She kept yelling. Osiris could hear the happiness in Neisha's voice and walked over to Cleo. Cleo rolled over to her other side. Osiris, irritated by this act, walked up to Cleo and turned her back and moved in closer. She said with disappointment in her eyes. She walked away to her own corner of the pen. Cleo turned around to face the wall again. What does she know? She hasn't lost anyone that's important to her. Tears welled out in her eyes. She voiced and started to cry silently. She heard someone say. Cleo turned her eyes towards the hole that they used to communicate. Neisha's mother's wise blue eyes were staring at her. She said, Cleo asked curiously. She had a hint of pride in her voice. This pricked Cleo's curiosity. Cleo was amazed. She didn't think that anything like this could ever happen. She was filling up with pride for Neisha too. Cleo asked shyly. Cleo smiled. She laid back down and looked at everyone. She saw Osiris in the corner. She got up and walked over to her. She said. Osiris looked at her. Cleo replied. And that ends part 14 of A Tale of Two Friends. Join me next week when we see... join me next week for the final chapter of this book, and we'll see what happens to the two. Until then, I love you and see you next time. Goodbye.